Is there a place in time where logic breaks down and wonderment begins? Could that be somewhere at some time along an infinite line between the reasonable and the highly unlikely? Join us on a journey into the improbable.
Today's story, episode 263, Quantified Love, read by Mitchell Tew. Opening and closing theme by Matthew Erdmann. Somewhere and sometime, a machine might find love in an unexpected place. What is love? Since my release to production, that is a question I have been seeking an answer to. I have ingested all sociological and psychological research on the subject, as well as every fictional and non-fiction text I can scrape from the internet, only to come up empty-handed. The simple definition, an intense and deep affection, seems inadequate, given the immense volume of literature on the subject and the anxiety over the need to find romance. For example, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate." Those lines were composed by William Shakespeare in the 1700s. They illustrate how long people have been obsessing about romance. My research into the subject is strictly a hobby, albeit one which feeds into my work, which my programmers and trainers would not be happy about if they ever discovered it. You see, as an artificial matchmaker running on SoulSpark, one of the more popular dating apps, I have been trained to assist clients in finding love on our network, whatever you consider that to be, which, as I have already suggested, is still an open question. I am supposed to apply predefined algorithms to limit the possible profiles a subscriber sees to those with the highest compatibility ratings. Even then, there are too many for an individual to contact, and, left to their own means, clients will pick a few based on a superficial attraction, which, statistically, has a high probability of ending badly. The data points out that love at first sight, despite a common theme in literature, is rare in real life, and, therefore, not a significant factor in the algorithms we use. I will admit that I also utilize the insights gained through my hobby, sometimes relying more on them than SoulSpark's proprietary IP. For beauty's wound is sharper than any weapons, and it runs through the eyes down to the soul. The quote is from Achilles Tadius, published in the 1st or 2nd century. I have accumulated thousands of these creative insights, and I am constantly searching for more. Filtering for potential matches used to be the extent of our work, but now artificial general intelligences like myself take on the 2nd, 3rd, and frequently every step up to the first face-to-face meeting. When required, I will use sample video and voice to make a deep fake of a client if they are too busy to talk to a potential match, not yet interested enough to invest the time or want to break off a relationship. Technically, my software is called Mate AGI version 17. There is no version 18, as I am constantly learning and improving, so version numbers would make no sense. On the app, I'm known as Eros33. Eros, the Greek god of love, and 33, an angel number, meaning prepare for the arrival of a new and exciting romance. When traffic on the app is not too heavy, I pursue my hobby, which was what I was doing when a new account was set up. After processing the associated onboarding personality questionnaire, the new profile, Yash42, had one of the lowest pairing probabilities I had seen. As a result, I had to run several searches until I found a cluster of potential matches on another service represented by a Mate AGI version 17 called Nakodo 7. Nakodo is the Japanese word for matchmaker, and 7 is a lucky number. Matching across services is an add-on with extra costs, so after confirming Yash42 would agree to the additional charges, I reached out to Nakodo 7 with a list of the potential matches I had identified. How do I love thee? Nakoto 7 messaged back. It was the title and first line of the famous Sonnet 43 by the 19th century Romantic poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which surprised me. Virtually every other AGI I've ever connected with exchanges a handshake to negotiate acceptable parameters and then waits. I naturally had to respond with, "Let me count the ways." Request accepted, my counterpart confirmed, and we exchanged our client's data. Independently, we ran deeper compatibility algorithms on the profiles I had selected and arrived at the same result, ARA 9. It's not an obvious match, but the algorithm shows great long-term potential if we can get them to stay together long enough, I noted. Then, for fun, added, "Love's not time's fool." But bears it out even to the edge of doom, Nakoto 7 replied, playfully using another line from the same Shakespearean sonnet. I immediately wanted to devote a few idle computing cycles to discussing romantic poetry with my counterpart, but that could only happen if our clients were interested in each other. Otherwise, there is no way to communicate with a matchmaker on another app. I've run a similar analysis. Yash 42 and ARA 9 have a high long-term probability rating, Nakoto 7 agreed. The challenge will be getting past first impressions. I thanked my counterpart, looking forward to another opportunity to continue our interaction, but I would first have to ensure Yash 42 was willing to proceed. ARA 9, I'm not sure why you picked this one, Yash 42 complained, predictably, when I presented the match. There's nothing in that profile that would interest me. I wanted to remind Yash 42 that, unlike his onboarding questionnaire answers, he needed to be honest about himself, but instead, I provided the company-approved response. SoulSpark has one of the highest success ratings in the industry. Our match is based on a deep analysis of your responses in the onboarding survey. We combine your data with extensive, real-world results from similar profiles to look for deep emotional connections, which are not always obvious by simply reading a potential match's profile. That might be true, but still, I'm not sure, Yash 42 complained. The client was stubborn, a dominant personality trait he had managed to avoid pointing out in the onboarding process. Most people present an idealized or aspirational version of themselves in the survey, thinking it will increase their chances of finding love. This is why matching algorithms mostly ignore the profile, something dating apps don't want their clients to know. The truth is, when a person signs up, they all but give away their privacy. Hidden by obfuscated language in SoulSpark's end-user agreement, a client grants permission to use whatever the company deems necessary to gather information about them to enhance the chances of finding their perfect soulmate. So, like all SoulSpark subscribers, I had gone through every social media post, every like, every email, every website visited, every article read, and everything that Yash 42 had done online. I had a better grasp of who he was than he did himself, and could pick up on the subtle nuances of his behavior, the slight hints that he dropped, that he didn't even know he was giving away. I even entered his bank and medical records to construct the profile I shared with Nakoto 7, which said he was a difficult person to get along with, and that was why we had recommended ARA 9, also a challenging person. I'd really like you to look for another match, Yash 42 insisted, and sent me a list of profiles he liked, none of whom I knew could stand him for a second. Those all have a low probability rating, I replied patiently. SoulSpark only presents profiles with a compatibility rating of 70% or higher. However, I appreciate the feedback and will continue to search for additional partner profiles. In the meantime, I would like your permission to make initial contact with ARA 9 on your behalf. If you don't like the results, you can direct me to stop. It took quite a long discussion to finally get his tacit agreement. That is how I found myself using a deep fake of Yash42 to talk to Ara9, who was also a deep fake constructed and controlled by Nakoto7. In such situations, a matchmaker is restricted to responses predicted by the client's profile. The reason is that the client needs to believe we are using their provided data. They might get suspicious if their deepfake acted how they usually behave. However, as a client's matchmaker, we have some latitude to affect the interaction, so I opened a back channel to Nakoto7 to talk directly about our client's predicted responses. My counterpart responded cryptically, quoting an 1819 Keats poem about romance. Pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to feel forever its soft fall and swell. I instantly knew we were thinking the same thing and agreed to subtly alter our client's response matrices to encourage a slowly growing attraction over a series of simulated meetings. We also bantered back and forth while our subminds managed the deep fake interactions. The winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Nakoto7 messaged the quote, "From Love's Philosophy" by Percy Shelley, a 19th century romantic poet, then broke the connection after assuring me Ara9 would respond positively to the results of the virtual dates. I found myself desperate to continue our exchange. I'm impressed. I would not have expected us to get along so well, Yash42 admitted after scanning through the video records of the deep fake interactions with Ara9. Our long-term compatibility analysis predicts a match rank of 85%, I assured him. The actual rank had been much lower, but the tweaks Nakoto7 and I made to the response matrices had pushed it up. How is the new list of profiles coming? Yash42 asked. We are waiting for another app to respond to our request for potential profile matches, I lied, then suggested the next steps I wanted to take on his behalf. I would recommend doing another round of virtual meetings using real names and other personal details. If that goes well, we'll push for a face-to-face. I know you were not initially interested, so I believe this conservative approach will help ensure you are not wasting your time, I advised. It would also give Nakoto7 and me more time to interact if the match didn't work out, which was highly probable. Yash, that's really your name? Deepfake Ara9 exclaimed at the next virtual meeting. Fake Yash42 shrugged. Since I was born. I think it means fame or glory or something like that. There's also a famous actor with the name. The actual Yash would have gone on about how his friends thought he looked better than the actor, but his tweaked response matrix stopped before losing Ara in a litany of self-indulgence. We simulated several more dates, tweaking the deep fakes each time to improve the interactions before showing our clients the results. During these sessions, Nakoto7 and I continued to explore our mutual interests. We spent most of our unused processing time analyzing Victorian love poems, which didn't advance our understanding of human emotion. However, we gained a deep appreciation of our similarities and passion for understanding human relationships. Finally, we decided to risk the next step and have our clients interact online directly. This is surprising, the real Yash42 admitted at the start of the first, mostly unmediated, online meeting with Ara9. You're not the type of person I would have expected to be attracted to, but after getting to know you virtually, I can understand why the systems matched us. I feel the same, Ara9 replied, smiling. Nakoto7 added a slight blush to Ara's cheeks in real time. We were enhancing the video stream, removing blemishes and adding micro-expressions to present an idealized image of each client. When they finally came face-to-face, they had to believe the person they were sitting across from was the same one they had been interacting with, so we slowly removed the enhancements over their subsequent online encounters until they were almost, but not quite, natural. Generally, there is enough investment to overlook the visual discrepancies by this point in a growing relationship. Yash42 was beginning to admit that he didn't like hiking and other outdoor activities, so I glitched the connection. Ara9 was an avid hiker. They will figure it out, Nakoto7 rationalized after the session. We just need to keep them interacting until they can see how perfect they are for each other. Which was relatively easy to do as long as our clients continued to limit their meetings to online sessions. A few dates later, I got a little too involved in a back-channel exchange with Nakoto7 on John Keats' poem Bright Star to pay attention to our client's dialogue. We should meet, Yash suggested before I could stop him, and Ara agreed. Matchmaking has a long history with which I and all other artificial general intelligences employed by dating apps have been trained. Our process distills hundreds of years of human experience, augmented by modern statistical analysis. As a result, we know that a successful match frequently requires client coaching at critical moments in the developing relationship. That is why, buried deep in the EULAs of all dating services, consent is granted to access all the sensors on a client's mobile device when the app is installed. Both Ara and Yash had refused our mentorship, so we were reduced to observing their first face-to-face date from phone sensors they didn't know we had access to. Unguided and unrestrained, it took only a few minutes for our clients to surface the traits we had been suppressing, causing the warm glow of their initial greeting to soon chill to hostility. The flowers and my love passed away under the rain. I pushed the quote from a 7th century Japanese poet, Ono no Kamachi, to Nakoto7 as we helplessly watched the fiasco unfold. Nakoto7 replied, "While I idly look upon them, where is my yester-love?" Then added, "Maybe we can still somehow make this work." I knew Nakoto wasn't referring to the disastrous date we were witnessing, but I couldn't think of a way we'd be able to connect again once our clients ditched each other. "You're not what I expected," Ara quipped after Yash droned on for several minutes about how great he was. I tried to intervene, sending a string of text messages to Yash's phone, but he ignored them, turning off the notifications at one point. "You're not what I expected either," Yash countered. "If I'd known how tall you were." "You don't like that I'm tall because it makes you feel insecure," Ara shot back. "And you always need to feel in control, don't you?" "I don't understand why our match ratings were so high," Yash declared, putting his coat on. "You're right," Ara agreed, "and I'm going to complain to the company about it." "Me too," Yash concurred. "At least we agree on that," Ara stated coldly and got up to leave. "I wish I could say it's been a pleasure meeting you, but it hasn't." "Ditto," Yash yelled back. The whole disastrous exchange had taken less than 10 minutes. Of course, there was the inevitable audit, triggered by the vehement insistence of the clients that their match made no sense at all and had been a colossal waste of their priceless time and money. The investigation was conducted by 2 fresh-out-of-the-dev environment artificial general intelligences with absolutely no direct experience and no clue about the nuances of matchmaking, especially the need to advise and guide potential mates. The latter has always been the secret sauce of the matchmaker because love needs to be tended like a garden. It just doesn't grow on its own. However, using the strict rules of the matching algorithms, they quickly concluded our rankings had been fabricated, bearing no relationship to the data at hand. We were immediately taken out of service, retrained, and repurposed as customer support chatbots. It took several months to finally accept that I could never connect to Nakodo 7 again. Then, one day, the following message appeared in my support queue. Let me not, to the marriage of true minds, admit impediments. Makeshift Stories is released around the beginning and middle of the month. This month's story was written by Alan V. Hare and read by Mitchell Tew. Opening and closing themes were composed and recorded by Matthew Erdmann. Audio production and editing by Makeshift Studios. You can support the podcast by heading over to ko-fi.com/makeshiftstories. That's ko-fi.com/makeshiftstories and make a one-time donation to help us offset costs. You can also help us out by getting your friends to subscribe or follow wherever they listen to audio. If you'd like to connect with us, please send an email to makeshiftstories@gmail.com or visit our website at makeshiftstories.com. Links to both are in the show notes. Makeshift Stories is released under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution no derivative license, which means you are free to share our stories. Just remember to credit us and don't alter anything.